Imagine standing shoulder to shoulder with your brothers, looking across the field and seeing 10 men for every one of you. 20 for every one of you. 50 for every one of you. History says you should run. History says you should die. But history is wrong. In 480 BC, 300 men held off 100,000. In 1415, 6,000 starving Englishmen slaughtered 20,000 French knights. How? They didn't fight harder. They fought different. This is the art of survival. And today I'm going to show you the 4 forbidden rules that let outnumbered armies win impossible wars. Imagine this. You are standing in a line, shoulder to shoulder with your brothers. Your armor is heavy. Your mouth is dry. You look forward. Across the field, there are so many of them you cannot count them. For every one of you, there are 10 of them. 20, 50. Your general walks behind your line. He doesn't give a speech about victory. He gives you the truth. We will not all survive this, but we will make them remember this day forever. History is not written by the biggest army. If it was, the world would be boring, predictable. Empires would never fall. History is written by the desperate, the clever, the ones who looked at impossible math and decided to change the equation. This is not a story about luck. Luck runs out. This is a story about the art of survival. How outnumbered armies looked death in the face and won. For thousands of years, military leaders have believed in one simple rule. God fights on the side with the biggest battalions. It makes sense. More men means more swords, more spears, more guns. More men means you can afford to lose some. But history keeps breaking this rule. In 480 BC, 300 Spartans held off an army of over 100,000 Persians. In 1415, 6,000 Englishmen, starving and sick, destroyed 20,000 French knights. In 1940, 32 Finnish soldiers held a position against 4,000 Soviets for 2 days. How? How is this possible? After studying over 100 of these impossible victories, historians found that they are not random. They all follow the same hidden playbook, the same 5 principles of survival. If you are outnumbered, you cannot fight a normal war. You have to fight a different kind of war. A smarter, crueler, more psychological war. Today, we are decoding that playbook. The first rule of winning when you are outnumbered is simple. Never fight on the enemy's terms. If the enemy has 100,000 men and you have 10,000, you cannot fight them on an open field. On an open field, they will surround you. Their numbers will crush you like a wave. So you have to take away their biggest advantage. Space. You must find a funnel. The most perfect example of this in all of human history is Thermopylae. In 480 BC, the Persian king Xerxes invaded Greece with one of the largest armies the ancient world had ever seen. Modern estimates put it at 120,000 to 300,000 men. Against him, the Greek city-states were divided and slow to unite. King Leonidas of Sparta took just 300 of his personal royal guards and marched north with about 7,000 other Greek allies. They chose their ground, a narrow coastal pass called Thermopylae. In Greek, it means the hot gates. The pass was only 50 feet wide. On one side, steep mountains. On the other side, the sea. Xerxes looked at the Spartans and laughed. He had so many archers that their arrows would blot out the sun. Leonidas famously replied, "Then we will fight in the shade." For 3 days, the Persian army threw itself at the Greek line. And for 3 days, they failed. Why? Because in that narrow pass, only a few hundred men could fight at a time. Xerxes' 100,000 men didn't matter. Only the 300 men in front mattered. And in that brutal close-quarters fight, the Spartans were better. Their bronze shields locked together into an unbreakable wall. Their long spears stabbed over the top. The Persians, with their light wicker shields and short spears, were slaughtered. Herodotus tells us the pass was choked with bodies. The Spartans finally fell only because they were betrayed. A local shepherd showed the Persians a secret mountain path that led behind them. Surrounded, Leonidas sent the other Greeks away and fought to the death with his 300. It was a tactical defeat, but a strategic masterpiece. They bought Greece enough time to unite and eventually destroy the Persian fleet at Salamis. Lesson: if you are outnumbered, shrink the battlefield. Find your Thermopylae. A mountain pass, a bridge, a narrow street, a dense forest. Force a massive army to fight like a small army. This principle was used again 2,000 years later, in the snow. In 1939, the Soviet Union invaded Finland with 450,000 soldiers, thousands of tanks and planes. Finland had 300,000 total, poorly equipped. with almost no tanks or planes. The world thought it would be over in a week. It was called the Winter War. The Finns knew they could not stop Soviet tanks on open roads. So they didn't. They let the Soviets advance deep into the endless Finnish forests in the middle of winter, where temperatures dropped to -40 degrees. Then they used a tactic called modi. The word means a pile of logs ready to be cut. Finnish ski troops, dressed in white camouflage, moving silently on skis, would cut the long Soviet columns into small isolated blocks. A few men would blow up the first and last truck in a convoy. The convoy would stop. Then, from the trees, the Finns would attack. In one battle, the Battle of Suomussalmi, 11,000 Finns encircled and destroyed 2 entire Soviet divisions, 50,000 men, killing over 23,000. They turned the forest itself into a weapon. The cold was their ally. The Soviets, without winter clothing, froze to death in their tanks. If you cannot match your enemy's strength, make him fight in a place where his strength is useless. If Principle 1 is about controlling space, Principle 2 is about controlling fear. An outnumbered army is always one bad moment away from panic. When you see 10 enemies for every one of you, every human instinct screams run. The army that panics first loses. Period. The army that stays disciplined wins. No battle proves this better than Agincourt. October 25th, 1415. Northern France. The 100 Years' War. King Henry V of England had marched deep into France. His army of 12,000 was now reduced to about 6,000 men. They were starving, exhausted, sick with dysentery, and their clothes were falling apart. They just wanted to get back to England. Blocking their way to the coast was a French army of at least 20,000 to 30,000 men. Fresh, well-fed, heavily armored knights. The flower of French nobility. For every Englishman, there were 4 or 5 Frenchmen. The French were so confident of victory, they had already sent for painters to paint their triumph. The battlefield was a freshly plowed field between 2 woods. It had rained for 2 weeks. The ground was deep, thick mud. Henry V gave his men a speech. He said they were not fighting for plunder. They were fighting for England, for their brothers, for survival. He placed his army in a line. But his secret weapon was not his knights. It was his archers. About 5,000 English and Welsh longbowmen. The longbow was the machine gun of its age. A skilled archer could fire 12 arrows a minute that could pierce armor at 300 yards. The French plan was simple. Walk forward and crush them with heavy cavalry and armored men-at-arms. But Henry had ordered his archers to hammer sharpened wooden stakes into the ground in front of them, angled toward the enemy. A wall of spikes. The French knights, in heavy plate armor weighing 60 pounds, began to advance. They immediately sank into the knee-deep mud. Their horses got stuck. The field became a nightmare. The heavy armor that made them invincible on dry ground now made them prisoners. Then the sky went dark. 5,000 archers released their arrows. The sound was like a storm. The arrows fell like rain on the French. The French front line fell. The line behind them tripped over the bodies and fell into the mud. The line behind them tripped over them. In minutes, the French army became a suffocating pile of men, horses, and mud, unable to move, unable to fight. The lightly armored English archers then dropped their bows, picked up hammers and daggers, and walked into the mud and slaughtered the French nobility. By the end of the day, the French had lost over 6,000 men, including 3 dukes and almost 90 counts. The English lost about 400. The French had numbers. The English had discipline and a plan that turned the enemy's strength, their heavy armor, into their greatest weakness. When you are outnumbered, you cannot afford emotion. You must be ice. You must make your enemy lose his mind while you keep yours. Sometimes you cannot find a narrow pass. Sometimes you cannot wait in the mud. Sometimes you are in the open, and the enemy is coming to crush you. What do you do then? You do what the greatest military geniuses in history did. You lie, you move faster than thought, and you hit them where they aren't looking. This is the principle of the hammer and the anvil, mastered by Hannibal Barca and Alexander the Great. Let's go to Cannae, 216 BC. Rome versus Carthage. Rome had an army of 86,000 men, the largest army Rome had ever assembled. Hannibal had 50,000. The Romans were confident. Their plan was to use their superior numbers in the center to simply push through the Carthaginian line and break them. Hannibal knew this. He set a trap that is still taught in every military academy in the world today. He placed his weakest troops, his Gauls and Spaniards, in the center and made his line bulge out towards the Romans like a crescent moon. On his flanks, on the far left and right, he placed his best, most disciplined troops, his African heavy infantry. When the Romans attacked, they pushed into the center. The Carthaginian center slowly, deliberately, gave way. It sucked the Romans in. The crescent became inverted. The Romans thought they were winning. They pushed deeper and deeper, packing themselves tighter and tighter together, so tight they could not even raise their swords. That was the signal. Hannibal's elite African infantry on the left and right flanks turned inward and attacked the sides of the Roman mass, like an anvil closing. At the same time, his cavalry, which had defeated the Roman cavalry, rode around behind the Romans and sealed the back. The hammer had fallen. 50,000 Romans were encircled in a space so small they were crushed to death standing up. It was the deadliest single day of fighting in Western history until World War I. Rome lost 60,000 men in one afternoon. Hannibal was outnumbered, but he made the Romans outnumber themselves. He used their aggression and weight against them. If you are outnumbered, you cannot fight a pushing match. You must be fluid. You must be faster. You must make your enemy think he is winning until the exact moment he realizes he has lost. Khalid ibn al-Walid, the Sword of Allah, did the same thing at the Battle of Yarmouk in 636 AD. With 40,000 Muslim soldiers against 100,000 Byzantines, he used his elite mobile guard as a rapid response hammer, constantly moving to wherever the line was breaking, plugging holes, then disappearing to strike somewhere else. He never let the Byzantines fight the battle they wanted. Speed is a weapon. Deception is a weapon. The final principle is the darkest and most powerful. An army is not just a collection of men and weapons. It is a collection of minds. And minds can be broken long before bodies are. If you are outnumbered 10-1, you cannot kill 10 men for every one you lose forever. You will run out of arrows, out of energy. You have to make the 10 men decide they don't want to fight anymore. You have to wage psychological war. In 1879, at the Battle of Rorke's Drift, 139 British soldiers, 35 of them sick in the hospital, defended a small mission station in South Africa against 4,000 Zulu warriors. The Zulus had just annihilated a British army of 1,800 men at Isandlwana. They were confident, fierce, and unstoppable. The British had no chance. But their commander, Lieutenant John Chard, did not let his men think about the numbers. He gave them work. He ordered them to build walls out of mail-eye bags and biscuit boxes. He made them fortify the hospital and the storehouse. He kept them busy, focused. When the Zulus attacked, they came in wave after wave. The British fired volley after volley. The Zulus were so brave they reached the walls and tried to grab the rifles. The battle lasted for 11 hours, through the entire night. The British were down to their last few rounds. But they kept singing. They kept shouting. They never stopped firing from the walls. When morning came, the Zulus, who had lost over 350 warriors and who had never seen men fight with such stubborn, relentless defense, simply left. They walked away. They had broken their spirit on those walls of corn bags. The British understood. Courage is contagious, but so is doubt. If you can make a massive army believe that beating you will cost more than it's worth, they will break. Alexander the Great did this at Gaugamela in 331 BC. He faced Darius III of Persia, who had an army of perhaps 100,000 to 250,000 men against Alexander's 47,000. Darius had prepared the battlefield, flattening the ground so his 200 chariots would work. Alexander did something insane. He marched his entire army at an angle, to the right, away from the center. Darius thought he was trying to flee and ordered his left flank to follow him, which opened a gap in the Persian line. Alexander saw it. He formed his elite companion cavalry into a wedge like a spearhead and charged directly into that gap, straight for Darius himself. He wasn't trying to kill the whole Persian army. He was trying to kill their belief. When Persian soldiers saw their king, Darius, turn his chariot and run away in panic because Alexander was coming for him, the entire massive Persian army collapsed. The numbers meant nothing once their leader's courage broke. If you are the small army, you are not fighting 100,000 men. You are fighting one man 100,000 times. Find the one thing that holds them together, their leader, their flag, their pride, and shatter it. So what is the art of survival? It is not about being stronger. It is about being smarter. Shrink the battlefield. Make their numbers meaningless. Forge unbreakable discipline. Make your fear your servant, not your master. Be water, not stone. Use speed, deception, and traps to turn their strength into weakness. Break the mind. Attack their spirit before you attack their bodies. From the hot gates of Thermopylae to the mud of Agincourt, from the snows of Finland to the dusty plains of Cannae, the lesson is the same. Being outnumbered is a terrible disadvantage. It is terrifying, but it also forces a clarity that big armies never have. A big army can afford to be stupid. A big army can afford to make mistakes. A small army cannot make one single mistake. And that pressure forges diamonds. It forges brilliant leaders, unbreakable bonds between soldiers, and tactics that are so audacious they seem insane. Until they work. The next time you face an impossible challenge in your own life, when the odds are 10 to 1 against you, remember these men. Remember that you don't need to be the biggest to win. You just need to be the last one standing.